Welcome to Amidon Planet. I'm your host, Joel Amidon. Thank you for joining me in this never-ending quest to learn how to teach better. Today, on episode 119 of the podcast, we're doing a special Christmas listener suggestion countdown. Kind of a little thank you for the end of the year. We're going to go through a couple things that maybe you missed throughout the tenure of these 118, now 119 episodes. But we want to make sure that you stay tuned because so we're doing a countdown, and the one is a gift just for you. It's a special thank you. Just a little thank you for making the choice to hit play on an episode of Amidon Planet, because we take that personally. It is a personal thing because it's unlike flipping channels. It's, there's not just like podcasts playing all the time and then you're like, oh, I happen to tune into it. No. This is a very specific thing. You've made the choice to hit play on this specific episode and want to say thank you. So whether it's your first time or the 119th time, we want to say thank you. So make sure to stick to the end of this episode. All right, so let's get into it. So first of all, I want to give you 5 Amidon Planet episodes to check out. So maybe you just started listening recently. Maybe you started in the beginning and you dropped off and came back in a little bit later. Maybe there's some episodes that slipped through the cracks. So I just want to give you 5 to check out. And again, this is it's a holiday season. You might be driving, you might be flying, you might have some downtime, you might be putting something together and you need something to listen to while you're trying to put find peg A and hole B to put into so you can assemble the thing before it's Christmas time. So anyway, I want to give you some episodes to check out. So first is the most listened to episode that we've ever had is episode 71, which is Rob Harvilla and 60 Songs That Explain the 90s. That was a episode it took a long time to get Rob to come on and talk about the podcast, where he again talks about the 90s. And if you've listened to this podcast, you've heard me. I've talked to Rob twice now about his podcast and then about his book, 60 Songs That Explain the 90s. And then we also just did a little celebration because he actually brought that podcast back, 60 Songs That Explain the 90s, the 2000s. Hard to explain, but you can go listen to it. Again, it's just taking the same ideas that he was doing in 60 Songs That Explain the 90s, teaching us about the 90s, but also filling it with special anecdotes. And I think there's a lot there to learn about how to connect folks to you in order to connect them to the subject that you're talking about. And I've actually learned a lot about teaching, listening to Rob, and hopefully, and I think he knows it because I've told him. I told him to his face, or told him to his Zoom face. So that's episode 71. Episode 111, AI in Education with Mark Watkins. Mark is an expert in artificial intelligence. AI is everywhere, and if you want to kind of get a handle on it, especially from an educator's perspective, listen to that episode with Mark. He's got a lot to share, and also to the resource page. All of these things have resources pages or show notes pages associated with them, and this one especially is good because Mark has got some things that he's shared in the episode that I want to connect you to, because this is a conversation that's continuing all the time. I just signed up for a webinar here at the University of Mississippi that's coming in January about thinking about course design from an AI perspective. And again, it's constantly evolving. So you want to be in community with folks that are in the know. And Mark is definitely in the know. So that's a good one to pay attention to. Also, the one right after that, episode 112, was another well-listened to episode, Rolling in the Deep Work by Cal Newport. It was a solo episode, kind of reminded me of the beginning of Amidon Planet, where I was doing a lot of solo episodes, just talking about books that I'd read and thinking about it from an educator's perspective. So this is like throwback to those, and people seem to like those. So it makes me think like I'm going to maybe do a few more of those. I got a few books in mind that I'd like to do that sometimes I'm always waiting for somebody to talk to about a book, and versus like, you know what, I can, maybe it's a book that I just want to, I say talk to myself, but I'm not really talking to them. I'm talking to y'all. And engaging in this kind of one-sided conversation, at least that is. But anyway, Rolling the Deep Work by Cal Newport. Deep work is something I really strive for in thinking about how do I capture those focus moments, and Cal Newport has a lot of good things. And I think there's things in that book that also apply to being an educator or just thinking about how to tap into your own potential as someone that does deep work. Episode 18, this was very early on. This was The Dream Keepers with Gloria Ladson-Billings. Gloria Ladson-Billings is a legend in education. She was kind enough to spend some time with me when I first started the podcast. And I don't know, maybe there's some people out there that assign this podcast episode to be listened to in their courses, because this is a very well listened to podcast. Because what I really like about it and what stands out to me from the episode is how she talks about her definition of culture relevant pedagogy. So culture relevant teaching, right? And the description that she created, and that's, I think 30 years ago. Her book is, again, a classic book in education circles, and talking about her perspective on that work now, or at least when that podcast episode was recorded. Great episode, and glad that she spent a little bit of time with me to record it. And again, she's a legend. It's out there. Go take a listen. Episode 118, that was the last one that we just recorded, and that was with Fred Dillon and Ayanna Perry talking about their book, 5 to Thrive, answering those big questions about teaching secondary math. And again, and one thing that goes along with this is both Fred and Ayanna, I learned about them or met them through the Knowles Teacher Initiative, really developed the relationship and the work that I did through the Knowles Teacher Initiative, whether it's being in a selection or now serving as a board member. That press release just came out, but I'm now proud to be on the board of trustees for the Knowles Teacher Initiative. But Fred and Ayanna had done a lot of work through Knowles, or Ayanna works for Knowles, and then Fred would work on selection committees as well, just like I did. And they wrote a book, that 5 to Thrive book. And I think just those books in general are great resources. That'll come up in a later part of this countdown where we talk about maybe some potential presents you might want to give to that educator in your life. So there's 5 episodes. I got some bonus ones. Episode 66, Love as Praxis with Jeremiah Sims. That's when I first had a conversation with Jeremiah. It was like drinking from a fire hose. I loved his energy. I love interacting with him. I got to get him on again. He's doing great stuff. I had him on a few times, not only with him, but also with his colleague, Jeremy Wallace. And we've had Jeremy on a couple times when they talked about their book, The White Educator's Guide to Equity. Anyway, that was my first experience with Jeremiah Sims. Maybe it was yours. If you're not aware of Jeremiah, he's just an awesome person to think about when you think about sharpening your pedagogy, sharpening your teaching. How are you relating to others? I love his perspective. And finally, another bonus is episode 15, which is I kind of had these theme episodes early on when I was doing like once a month. And I did one called Create. So it was like a year, and I did a lot of these like creative sort of episodes. But one was on lessons from Rick Rubin, Malcolm Gladwell, and the Broken Record podcast. And for some reason, that thing went off, and a lot of people listened to that episode. But that was really early on in Amidon Planet episodes. I was actually on sabbatical when I recorded that episode in Kenya. I was recorded in Kenya. And so that was, I don't know, maybe it was because I was traveling, I listened a lot, and I just felt called to record it one night while I was staying in this hotel in Kenya. Anyway, so there it is. That's some episodes, 5 Amidon Planet episodes to check out. Again, with a few more bonuses. All right, how about 4 podcasts to check out? And these aren't necessarily my podcast. Well, to be honest, the first one I'm a co-host of. One is a math teaching podcast. If you're a teacher of math teachers, so you're a math coach or like you're a math ed professor like me, the Math Teaching podcast is one that I co-host started off with Ava Thanheiser and Dusty Jones, and now I co-host it with Jen Wolfe and Dusty Jones. And we've had 100 episodes. And so if you're looking for kind of entry-level expertise and advice from experienced math teacher educators, that's a awesome podcast list too. Also, guests will talk about, projects and things that they're working on. I love it. I love co-hosting it. I love the conversations we get to have, and I love that we get to shine a light on some of the work that people are doing, and also too getting access to that entry-level advice and expertise from leaders in the field, like talking about Gary Martin, Marilyn Strutchins. I'm thinking about Just even recently we had on Rodrigo and Melissa from University of Arizona talking about the work that they do at their Center for Recruitment and Retention. Center for Recruitment and Retention, and the things that they do with their Math Educator Appreciation Day. And that was just an awesome episode. And I'm glad that I heard about it, and I'm actually going to go present at Mead in early January. So again, not only is it stuff that I'm glad to be sharing, but it's also stuff that I'm taking advantage of myself. And so thus things that I want others out there that are teachers and math teachers to be aware of. Again, that's a Teaching Math Teaching podcast. Going along with that, the Math Ed podcast with Sam Otten. He's been hosting that for way longer than I've been doing podcasts. He's talks to people about their research. He did early on some episodes with some Math Ed legends that I think are unbelievable. He talked to one episode with Tom Carpenter, who was at the University of Wisconsin. I had a chance to talk to Tom Carpenter, but Sam interviewed him, like 60 Minutes interviewed him to talk about his work and life at the University of Wisconsin. And then he talks to Jeremy Kilpatrick from the University of Georgia. I mean, the list goes on. I'm going to not go on because I'm going to make a mistake and not remember some key people. But I really love those episodes. And again, Math Ed, one thing is there's lots of connections to the University of Wisconsin, my alma mater, which is kind of cool. But then also too, just, he does a really good job of diving into people's research and stuff. So it's a way to keep abreast to some stuff that's going on out there without having to read a lot. Cause sometimes, it's hard to do that. I mean, you can get better at math education while going for a run. That's what I was doing when I was doing a lot of half marathon training. Listen to Sam a lot. All right, so there's two of the four. Another podcast I love listening to is Rewatchables. That's from the Ringer Podcast Network. They basically talk about old movies and have all these categories that they go through. I love it. Sometimes it's like a not safe for work sort of situation, so you might want to have the headphones on. But they're a bunch of guys like Bill Simmons, who's the Bill Simmons podcast, one of the most popular sports podcasts. But Bill Simmons and other people from the Ringer, like Chris Ryan, Sean Fennessy, people that care about some of the movies that I like. So this might be a very hey, if you're in my demographic, you might like this podcast. Same thing for another podcast I want to recommend, which is Ringerverse, the Midnight Boys episodes. That's another one from the Ringer. I really like it's I don't know, people hanging out, talking about, for the Rewatchables, it's movies. I love talking about movies, especially they talk about a lot of movies that are from my wheelhouse. Or the Ringerverse, it's talking about fandom, so Marvel and other stuff. They'll have drafts and things like that for both of them. Again, might not be something you want to play out loud in the car, but if you got some headphones, might be entertaining for you to take a listen to. Another one that I really like and these are old, but I think that they're very entertaining. It's called Strike Force 5. It was the 5 night hosts. John Oliver, Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, Stephen Colbert, and Seth Meyers. When the writer's strike was happening, they got together and had this podcast in order to raise money for their staff, right? And so I can't remember how many episodes they were, but they're pretty funny. They were entertaining. And they're still out there, and it's not like it's that timely, so you can go back and listen to them. It was an entertaining listen to at the time. I've maybe listened to them again when I'm like, I don't know what to listen to. I'm going to listen to the Strike Force 5 episodes again. So that's a bonus one for you. All right, 3 worthy places to give. So at the end of the year, maybe you're looking for a place to give a little money, feel good about yourself, maybe looking for a little tax break. Here's 3 worthy places to give. One is 410 Bridge. That's the place I did my sabbatical work with back in 2018. And if you want to learn more about 410 Bridge, you can listen to episode 87, where I talked to Kurt Candler, one of the leaders of 410 Bridge, or the founder of 410 Bridge, where he's talking about his book, If You Really Want to Help. So that's episode 87. 410 Bridge does awesome work working with communities to help communities help themselves. I really love it. They do community development right. And so if you want to get on to something that somewhere where they're doing community development right, trying to help solve poverty, 410 Bridge, really like that. Going along with that, the Reclaim Project, they do lots of good work here in Mississippi and in Africa. And they do some community development work as well, but they're doing it just down the road as well in Marks, Mississippi, where they have the village, where they're trying to create community for teachers, so allowing teachers to live within the community in which they teach, which is a great way for teachers to get better at teaching within a community, is actually live in the community that they teach, right? And on episode 59, I talked to Daniel Myrick about the book, The Dichotomy of Leadership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin, but we also talk about the Reclaim Project on that. So that's another, I think, worthy place to give. Another place is, and this goes towards what I was talking about before, teaching math teachers. So talking about the STAR Early Career Mathematics Education Faculty Fellowship. That's from the Association of Mathematics Teacher Educators. If you want to support early career faculty, I know I got that support in 2012, and I think it changed my trajectory of my career, was getting a little bit of mentorship at the beginning, because sometimes you're kind of locked into the education you got from your doctoral program, and having something like the STAR program, as a way to connect with other folks across doctoral programs or across institutions, was invaluable. So that's another one. That's kind of a niche sort of giving opportunity. Some other things are maybe like if you want to give to the University of Mississippi School of Education, which does some great stuff. They actually have like a in-time need fund that where if students need like money for gas or groceries because they're trying to, again, do the work of a student teacher, means basically you're working a job without getting paid for a job. And so maybe you need something to make ends meet. And we've got a fund for that at the University of Mississippi School of Education. Another worthy place is the Bible Project, which I think does amazing things with regards to creating awesome resources that are kind of awesome modern resources for those that want to connect with the Bible. I've always wanted to have Tim Mackey or John Collins, they're the creators of the Bible Project, on here, because I think they're learning something about teaching through the work that they're doing, through the animations that they create, through the teaching resources that they're doing through the Bible Project. If you've never seen it, go check it out. I support the Bible Project. Another thing to support is two local things, is either the United Way or your local church. All right. United Way does amazing things in your community. Like, I say that because I was a member of the United Way board here in Oxford, Mississippi, and saw the projects that they were helping to fund. Again, helping local groups that were doing specific work to attack needs that United Way had identified, and United Way would be like, okay, here's some funds in order to go do that work. And I'm betting that the United Way is at work in your community. And so, I just remember the United Way from all the football commercials back in the day. They would talk about United Way, but I've actually seen the work that they do. So that's pretty cool. And again, local churches do cool things as well. So one cool thing I got to do this past week was my local church basically took cookies to our local detention center and did a little Christmas party for all the inmates at the Lafayette County Detention Center. And just, share a little bit of cookies, some hot chocolate, and, little message, brought some light in a pretty dark place. And, I know the guys were appreciative, and the ladies were appreciative of it. And, just making some cookies and share it could really, maybe be the light that somebody needs in a really dark time. So support your local church, because they probably do more than just making cookies. They're doing other things, working at the food pantry. They're, providing opportunities for people to share their grief. I know that's something that's happening in my church. Like, what are ways to, again, serve needs? And there's probably some things that are happening there. Okay. 2 gifts for the teacher in your life, right? This is about learning how to teach better. That's what Amidon Planet's all about. So one thing I would suggest is, again, going back to episode 118 of the podcast where we talked with Fred and Ayanna about their 5 to Thrive book. Any of those 5 to Thrive series. And again, they'll put a link in the show notes either for that episode 118, it's already there, or I'll put a link into this episode for that. Any of those 5 to Thrive for the first-year teacher or the very experienced teacher. I have the book, and I'm seeing all sorts of different things that I'm learning from looking at these books. So it's a by-your-side guide, and I really like that. And they have a bunch of different things. They have secondary math. They have secondary science. I think they have elementary math. And there's other things that they have as well in that 5 to Thrive series. So check that out. Also, how we like books here. So how about a gift card to your local bookseller, right? So here maybe we might throw you one at for Square Books, or even I like half price books. These are unpaid promotions, but I like half price books because I love a used bookstore. I love a good used bookstore because I'm not looking to put it on the shelf and just so it looks pretty. I just want to read it. So as long as I've got the book, I'm a happy guy. So love it. I think I went to Powell Books in Portland. That was amazing. That's a huge bookstore. Loved it. Anyway. All right. And finally, how about one gift for you? So here's the thing. I'm getting into Sticker Mule and just making some stickers and other things. So if you send me an email with a question, comment, or suggestion, and you put your mailing address in it, I will send you an Amidon Planet sticker as a thank you for listening and supporting the podcast. So just, again, send an email with a question, comment, or suggestion to joel@amidonplanet.com. Give me your mailing address, and I will mail you an Amidon Planet sticker, one of those probably like 3-inch stickers to 2.5 to 3-inch stickers to put on your laptop, put on a water bottle, put on your car, whatever. Just a little Visit Amidon Planet sticker. Just, again, a little thank you for listening and supporting the podcast. All right. So, again, that's the Amidon Planet, or joel@amidonplanet.com if you want to do that. As always, you can support the podcast by liking, subscribing, sharing, even this episode, or maybe it's some of those episodes that I mentioned before, or even just whatever podcast, that you do. If you like it, make sure to review it, rate it, okay? Let it be known. Or even if this podcast showed up in your Spotify Wrapped, I'd love to know that as well. So if you're supporting a podcast, make sure to rate, review it. Let them know that you like it so it continues, right? So, again, supporting this podcast, like, subscribe, rate, review, share, anything that'll help people that are looking for similar content to find it. In addition, you can subscribe to the Amidon Planet download, which contains teaching resources and updates from Amidon Planet. Anywhere on the AmidonPlanet.com where you see join the email list, hit that button. You'll get the Amidon Planet download, which will have a reminder about sending the email to me for your free sticker. We'll get that, and you can actually take a look at it, see what it looks like. You can also, in addition, I'm always looking for opportunities to work with those who are looking to lead people to love others through teaching. If you have an event or opportunity to share, you can either send an email to joel@amidonplanet.com or head to amidonplanet.com/about to fill out the request a call form. All right. And again, this is a thank you out there for all of you that have taken the time to hit play, right? And so maybe there's some podcast episodes that you haven't heard before. Maybe there's some podcasts that you haven't heard before. Maybe there are some places to give that you haven't thought about, or even to maybe some gifts for others, or even to take advantage of this gift for yourself. Thank you. Thank you out there for listening and supporting Amidon Planet throughout the years, and especially this year in 2024, our best year ever. So thank you for spending time on Amidon Planet. Thanks to Matt Mifflin, as always, for the music in this episode. And finally, thank you to all of you out there learning to teach better, be the good in the world by investing in the lives of others. This world is a better place because you have decided to use the gifts you've been given to serve others. Thank you for all that you do. Peace.